From successful art heists to modern artists with hidden identities, here are 10 unsolved mysteries of the art world. Number 10. La Bella Principessa. One of the most enthralling stories of an unidentified piece of art is that of La Bella Principessa. In 1998, Kate Ganz, an art dealer from New York, purchased this study that depicted the head and shoulders of a young woman for just under $22,000 from Christie's in New York. She sold it in 2007 to Peter Silverman, a Canadian collector, for a similar price, saying at the time that it was based on a number of paintings by Leonardo Da Vinci. Silverman commissioned a series of tests on the piece, and in 2008 it was officially announced that it was an original by Da Vinci himself, a verdict that was corroborated by a number of experts, and it was revalued at $150 million. This wasn't the end of the story, though, because a renowned art forger came forward and claimed it to be one of his own works. Silverman took the unusual step of offering the con man $10,000 to recreate it again so he could prove it. So far, this has not been done. Different factions of the art world remain uncertain whether La Bella Principessa is truly a work by Da Vinci, so it remains in limbo until comprehensive proof is found. Number 9. The image of Jane Austen. She is one of the most famous British authors ever, having written Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice, but Jane Austen is also the subject of one of the art world's longest-running mysteries. It all relates to a painting known as the Rice Portrait, and whether it is of a young Austen or someone else altogether. The painting itself is claimed to have been painted in the late 1780s when the author was just 13. If it's legitimate, it would be the only oil painting of the author in existence. The problem, though, is that it wasn't signed or dated. Furthermore, a stamp has been found on the rear of the canvas, which suggests a date in the early 19th century when she would have been in her 20s. The owners, of course, are steadfast in their belief that the image is of Jane Austen, but many in the art world think it's of someone completely different. This rumor has meant the portrait has failed to sell every time it's put up for auction. And now for number 8. But first, do you know where the largest art theft in world history took place? Let us know your answer in the comments below. The answer is coming up, and be sure to subscribe if you are new here. Number 8. Who owns Dancer Making Points? This stunning image, painted by Gogh, is valued at a whopping $10 million. It's not entirely clear, though, who the rightful owner of the portrait is, as it seems to have changed hands in rather mysterious ways. By the way, are there any fans of the show Fake or Fortune out there? The provenance of this painting follows a similar story to many other artworks. It was originally purchased from a Parisian gallery in 1927 and taken to America around 1940 to be safe from the war. Okay, stay with me. Here it was purchased by Huguette Clark, but it seems unclear how it left her possession to become part of another collection. She spent the last 20 years of her life living in a hospital before dying in 2011 at the age of 104. Her attorney realized the Gogh was missing a year after she had moved out of her Fifth Avenue apartment, but to protect her privacy, Clark refused to file a report of its disappearance. Mistake number 1. There were suspicions that another resident of the building or a worker had stolen it, and it eventually turned up in the Peter Findlay Gallery just down the road from where she had lived a few years later. Since the painting wasn't registered as stolen, the gallery bought it from a young man who said his family had owned it for years. And then the gallery sold it on to Henry Bloch. Upon hearing about this, Huguette Clark contacted Bloch before she died, and they came to an agreement that the painting should be donated to the Nelson Atkins Museum in Kansas City, which the Bloches were patrons of. Relatives have now argued against this decision, though, claiming that Clark was not of sound mind to make such a decision. This left the ownership of the painting in complete limbo, as well as the fortune she left behind. Number 7. Who was the girl with a pearl earring? The Girl with a Pearl Earring, painted in 1665 by Johann Vermeer, is one of the most famous images in the art world. It's from the Dutch Golden Age and is often voted as the most beautiful painting in the Netherlands. But one question remains: who was the girl? Vermeer is thought to have mainly used members of his own family to pose, so the most commonly suggested identity of the girl with a pearl earring is his eldest daughter, Maria. She would have been about 12 at the time it was painted, but apart from the possible age similarity, there's no further evidence that it was her. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. Another possibility is Magdalena van Ruyven, the only daughter of Vermeer's patron, Peter van Ruyven. She was friends with Maria and a similar age. It would make perfect sense that the artist would have been commissioned to paint an image of her. Now, for those of you who have read the book or seen the movie, you'll be expecting me to suggest Griette, the family's nanny, as the final possibility. The problem is that she was a completely fictitious character created to give life to the story, and there's absolutely no record of her existing at all. The truth is, we'll likely never know who it actually is, but the art world seems to agree that it's one of the two daughters. Number 6. How did Van Gogh die? Many people consider Van Gogh one of the greatest painters of all time. He's certainly one of the most famous, even if it's just because everyone knows about how he cut off his own ear in a moment of insanity. The true mystery of the artist behind The Starry Night, Sunflowers, and Self-Portrait with Bandaged Ear is how did he die? In 1889, at the age of 36, his mental health was deteriorating. He spent time in the hospital, which seemed to help him recover, but he died in the early morning of July 29, 1890, due to a gunshot wound to the stomach. But who shot him? He reportedly returned to the inn the night before, holding his stomach. It was long thought that he had in fact shot himself, whether purposefully or accidentally, and that he was ashamed and didn't think that the wound was so severe, so he kept it under wraps. A recent investigation has suggested that he was actually shot by two boys that he knew who had a malfunctioning gun. This evidence is far from comprehensive though, so the mystery remains as to what happened on that fateful evening in events that took one of the most influential artists there have ever been. Number 5. The Battle of Anghiari. The Battle of Anghiari is a painting by one of the world's most famous artists, Leonardo Da Vinci. He was commissioned to paint it in 1503 for the Great Council Hall in Florence. But the problem is, every image you may have ever seen of the painting is done by other artists because the original has been lost. This is because Leonardo used experimental techniques when painting it, so as it faded, it was covered over with other depictions. It has long been thought, though, that the remnants of his original work still lie hidden within the walls of the building. In 2012, a team using forensic techniques found evidence that it does indeed still exist on an inner structure beneath a fresco by Vasari. Due to disagreements about whether the original should be uncovered or not, no further work has been done to find it. What do you think? Should it be uncovered? It still remains a mystery. Is the image truly still there, or has it worn away so much that it's unrecognizable? Number 4. The biggest heist in history. I'm sure you, like me, love a good heist story, but the truth behind the biggest heist ever carried out is still to be uncovered. For those of you who guessed, it took place in 1990 at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. Security guards opened the doors to two policemen who were responding to a disturbance, but to their surprise, the cops handcuffed them. Too late, they realized they were art thieves. Over the following minutes, the intruders stole 13 different artworks by the likes of Rembrandt, Vermeer, and Degas, with a total value of more than $500 million at today's prices. $500 million! No trace of the artworks or the thieves has ever been found, despite there being a $10 million reward for any information. If you know anything, speak now! The FBI says some of the artworks were being offered for sale in the 2000s in Philadelphia, and they've searched as far as Ireland for clues. It's a high likelihood that the paintings are in the hands of criminals who use them as currency, since valuable artifacts like this are seen as easier to secure and transport than cold, hard cash. They are now lost somewhere in the black market. Number 3. The Identity of Banksy. Art goes hand in hand with the ideas of pushing the limits and exploring new ideas, and Banksy definitely lives up to this. He first came onto the scene in 1990 as a freehand graffiti artist in Bristol in the UK, but since then he's moved on to stenciled works and is renowned for his humor, satire, and anti-establishment ethos. He's held large exhibitions around the world and even opened a theme park called Dismaland. Despite his high profile, he still keeps to his roots and reveals stenciled graffiti works worldwide. So what's the big mystery? His identity. No one knows who he is. Quite a few people have been suggested as Banksy, ranging from Robert Del Naja, the frontman of Massive Attack, Jamie Hewlett, the artist for Tank Girl and the Gorillaz, or even that Banksy isn't just one person, but a team of at least 7. For now, no one can be sure, but someday all will be revealed, and it'll be one of the biggest revelations of the modern art world that there's ever been. Number 2. The original Mona Lisa. Leonardo's Mona Lisa is without doubt the most recognizable portrait that's ever been painted. It's housed in the Louvre Museum in Paris and is much smaller in person than you'd expect. There's questions about who the person depicted in the painting is, but more curious is whether the one on display is even a likeness of a real person in the first place. Reflective light scans of the image have found something quite interesting, that the canvas actually contains 3 different paintings. It was not unusual for artists to reuse canvas to perfect their techniques, and new technologies allow researchers to see beneath the layers of paint. There's further evidence that Da Vinci scratched out and edited each work, and used their features to incorporate them into the new versions he painted on top. While the original image on the canvas could well be Lisa Gherardini, who most suggest was the model for the famous painting, the final version looks very different, so it could be an amalgamation of his original model and alterations he decided to make. Again, we'll probably never know the full story behind the Mona Lisa, something that only goes to make the image all the more enticing and her smile intriguing. Number 1. The object in David's hand. Michelangelo's David is the most recognizable sculpture in the world, and beyond controversies in some places about the unashamed nakedness of the piece, there's a mystery surrounding it and how complete it actually is. In particular, the hand. It's overly large in comparison with the rest of his body and bulging with veins. For this to be present in a work by a master of the craft, it makes sense that this was done for a reason. That reason, some suggest, is because the hand should be holding a deadly weapon. David is the one from the story of David and Goliath, and the theory goes that this hand should be holding the sling that he used to fell the giant. The statue already has the pouch of the sling in his left hand above the shoulder, and the straps go all the way around to near his right hand. Is this where he should be holding the handle? Others suggest it could simply be a stone he was holding, and it's not entirely clear why it's no longer there. Either way, it seems as if the David is incomplete and will be a continuing mystery forever. What was he holding? Thanks for watching! Let us know your favorite artwork in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and I'll see you next time. Bye!